everyone. Welcome to the another episode of React Native Rundown. I am Saloni and I work at GeekyAnts as an associate PM, and I'm going to be your host for today. And today we are talking about building a scalable and flexible architecture in React Native and how to build a cross-channel experience for guests. And for that, we have here with us our external speaker, Rakesh Gajula, and our internal speaker, Rajesh Day, who are both experts in React Native. So welcome, guys. And yeah, let's start with a little bit of introduction. Rakesh, maybe you can start ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Saloni, and thanks for inviting. Happy to be here discussing with you all. I'm Rakesh and I'm an architect at Darden restaurants. I've been working with React and React ecosystem, React Native for a very long time now. So, happy to share my experiences here.
Yeah, great. Welcome, Rakesh. Rajesh, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I'm working at GeekyAnts for last 2 years as senior software engineer, and so far I'm working on React and React Native for last 5 years. And it's really nice to kind of have this kind of meet and where we can like talk about new things and learn about other experiences.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. So to start with the basics first. Okay, when should we actually think about building a flexible and a scalable app architecture? So, Rakesh, you want to start with that?
Sure, Saloni. I think, scalable and flexible app architecture is something to be considered when you begin any project. It should not be after the fact thought. It's really crucial to have some long-term vision on how the app is going to be, you want to take it forward. It is scalability and flexibility are really vital for any app, and especially for apps that are expected to expand and transform over time. Also, the movement towards omni-channel experiences, it is essential to consider channels beyond just web or mobile apps, like such as voice skills, CarPlay, Android Auto, TV apps, and with the modern day JavaScript, creating multi-channel experiences, you can do that like never before. And your users are expecting that because they are on all these channels, like, whether they are at home on TV or on their mobiles, when they are browsing their iPads or, tablets. So you want to be able to serve your users no matter which channel they are. Like I said, we need to think through this about how your user is going to use your applications at multi-channels, and having that thought right from beginning is really crucial.
Yeah, exactly. So, Rajesh, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the most important thing I would say is like proper planning and thinking ahead, like where we would like to kind of and how like we'd like to kind of build the apps over multiple channels. With proper planning, we can design the architecture in a similar manner, and so that it can be really scalable and giving us similar experience in all these channels to our users.
Exactly. So, Rakesh, can you tell us like any thoughts you have on how to actually start with this process of having a cross-channel approach in React Native?
Yes, the thought of having this creating cross-channel experiences can feel like really challenging, and it at times feel daunting. But with the right methods and tools, that community offers and the ecosystem offers, it is not as much. And with the right approach and having a strong foundation from the very beginning, it is definitely possible and feasible. The foundation is something that has to be done at the very beginning. It's very crucial to build out this shareable cross-channel code base. Think of an analogy, in construction of a superstructure, right? You don't construct with floor one on day one. That's not how huge structures are built. Instead, they all begin with a very strong foundation and structural elements. Similarly, even to build these, not just one app that you're talking about, it's a gamut of experiences across channels. having this shareable, strong code foundation code base is really crucial. Another thing I want to mention is having abstraction layers within your code base to provide channel-specific implementations for the same exact features, like say Apple Pay on all the channels. And also, it is really vital to consider cross-cutting concerns such as your API needs, loading experiences, or any local storage that you might have on your on the device. So all these have to be thought of and made part of the foundation, and that's how you begin, and that's how, in my experience, that's how you are able to achieve what you really want.
Exactly. I really like your point about abstraction layer. It's really important to, identify the common experiences among different channels and, maybe think about extracting them out in a separate package or a separate layer so that it can be consumed everywhere and it's same amongst all the channels.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Rajesh, any other inputs on that?
Yeah, speaking of common features, the basic thing we should start with, I guess, design system, where we must figure out the design system first, establish it, and verify that whether that design system really works well in each of those channels, right? Because in the end, no matter how the business logic is, the UX is what the user experience is like. That is what they directly interact with. So having a proper design system first, and then utilizing that, maybe we can keep that as a separate package and using it across multiple channels.
Yeah, exactly. So any tools or libraries have you guys used which have, assisted you in easing this process? Rakesh?
There are a lot of tools, if you ask me, but I have some tools that come to my mind that I can share. So Expo is one really valuable tool that provides this core set of components and SDK to build out cross-channel experiences. There are many libraries within React and React native ecosystem, like React Navigation is one, and then the other is React Native Elements that provides a cross-platform UI components that are easy to use and customizable. Thinking about all these elements of your application, like navigation and how your UI components are going to, like Rajesh mentioned, right? The design system that is the elements, how each of your controls on your application look like, and as your code base is growing larger, or there is more shareable aspects to your code for multiple channels. It also is important to think about monorepos. Monorepos are a very great way to be able to have a segregation within your code, at the same time bring in the shareability aspect, reusability aspect to your application's code base. Narwhal's NX is an exceptional tool that streamlines maintenance of a very vast monorepo. So these are some of the things that come to my mind, but there are a lot more. But these are some of the tools that will kind of ease up the journey as we are building out the applications and experiences.
Yeah, exactly. When you spoke about monorepos, it did happen to me personally. So I was working on a project and we had a mobile app, a web app, and an admin panel and everything. And it eventually it grew to the point changes were so difficult to make. Every change we have to make for web, we have to make for mobile. And eventually we had to move down to a monorepo approach. And I could see how much easy it was for even us developers and for the user experience also. And there were lesser bugs, there were lesser feedback from the QA. Yeah.
Yep, and having the one of the points that Rajesh also mentioned about design system, right? It's always good to have a consistent experience across the channels. When we're talking about, we don't want to kind of build X way for one and then something Y for B. You want to have consistency. It helps everyone. It's not just how your user is going to use the application, but at every mode of development cycle, and even in the long-term maintenance of the applications itself.
Yeah, it does save the development effort. The developers don't have to waste so much time developing the same set of experience for so many different platforms. It should be extracted out at one place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rajesh, any experience that front?
Yeah, like with monorepo, I think we used like Yarn workspaces that really helped us to kind of handle the monorepo and having some modules inside the main repo where we kept like reusable business logic, global states, and reusable components that can be used like across mobile, web, and other platforms. With that, like it not only just help our development phase, but for testing it really helped a lot, because now the individual module can be separately tested, and once it's like confirmed that like okay, there are maybe this number of bugs are solved, now that's not going to change. Or even like while doing some like adding some more extra features, there is no way we can introduce bugs in the core features. So I think that really helps like to have that separation between the core modules and like extra features for each of those like separate apps. That really helps.
Yeah. So exactly. So design system and abstracting the business logic are few ways, which from which we can ensure a consistent user experience. Like anything else that you can think of, which can help us ensuring a consistent user experience among channels.
I have some points in there. So instead of kind of jumping, when you begin your application, you might think about end users modules that you want to build out. Hey, I want to build out the screen, or I want to build out this functionality, or this UI, or this UX. Instead of kind of jumping onto a very high level, build out something at the screen level, you kind of start off with small. Using the design system, like what Rajesh was talking about, you build out your individual components, how like CTS and, menus and how you want your headers to look like. These are independent, like small elements, and use Storybook, that's a great tool to build out these atoms, you can call it as smaller elements. Once you have this library of UI components or UI elements, then you kind of start using them to compose larger user interfaces, UI, build out much larger components itself. So you start small, and then you compose your larger UI elements using the smaller elements that you built. And that way you have a library of components, and then it's easy to have that consistency that you are looking for. A button is going to look like the primary button no matter where it is visible on your application. So that is one more thing I can talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And React is modular by nature, and we should really, think about leveraging that at every step of our product development. Yeah. So, Rajesh, any other thing you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Rakesh over here. And having the design system really helps in longer run. Let's say if we would the client decide to kind of have a different design, maybe they want to change their primary colors into something else, right? So having that complete set of like components which are like holding the core features or like the core UX UI, and so if we change over there, that will automatically reflect in all our modules. So that really helps a lot. Like even though it takes some time initially to kind of set it up and make it really usable, but once it is done, it really helps in longer run.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to add one more question. Like, so what do you see as, the biggest challenge while building up a cross-channel experience and while writing scalable code? Rakesh?
First of all, you start with a great idea, but as you go along, there could be deadlines or timelines that you want to meet, and then you kind of stray away from the ideal path of focusing on shareable code first. So having strong guardrails as you're building, you can also use a code quality static code analysis tools and have as part of your PR processes, and having those standards maintained, and the abstraction, instead of kind of you want to do the right thing, but be able to continue that as you proceed. That is one thing. having the idea, like intent is good, but also being able to it's like, I want to be healthy, but I also have to do some XYZ to be healthy, right? So it's that's what I was trying to say. You have to be doing XYZ to remain healthy. So intent is one, and actions that you want to achieve your intent is the other thing. So that is something that I want to kind of point out. And also being able to maintain consistency. You don't want to build out something unique experience, even though the flexibility is there, but being able to challenge the need for it is something that we have to do. Have a question first. Okay, is it really needed? And if there is a strong business need, then yes, you should definitely do it. But not stray away from consistency is one more thing. And the other is there is a you also have to be up to date with whatever is happening. As you are proceeding. We can kind of talk about this. There is a whole topic about how you want to maintain your system, but to your points about do we have to what do we have to be kind of cautious about? One of the points is to have those abstraction layers I was talking about. That is something that we need to consider. Having those abstraction layers of implementing common features across multiple channels is one other thing I want to bring up.
Yeah. And I really like your point about, maintaining the code, because we always start off with a very great intent. We set up practices, and we eventually, forget about them, and we start lazing off, and the whole project goes down the drain. So it's really important to, set, practices, standard practices, and stick to it. Actually stick to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Rajesh, any inputs on that?
First is like whenever we start with something big like this, where we will have proper design system, proper rules, static code analysis, and all other things, I think we must let the entire team know that why we are doing this, so that everyone is on the same page and understand the reason for this, right? It's not just, okay, like we want to do this in this project, but why exactly we are doing this, understanding the need. I think that really helps, because then everyone would really think from that perspective that this is the cause and that's why we are doing this. And then some people can come up with their new ideas. Maybe over the development phase, we may feel that, okay, this may not be working well, and we can shift to something new or adopt a different package. So even in that case, if we had kept the code very modularized, then it's very easy to kind of switch packages in longer run. Because it's very common that maybe after some number of years, some package may not be updated quite soon, right? And as React Native is growing very fast with update, those can get outdated, and it may not be really fits well with the latest version. So then it becomes a really challenge to kind of maybe come up with some business requirement that we need to meet. Maybe that is not no more available in that package. And switching from that over really gets a very tedious. So we must plan that, okay, within certain interval, we should go through all the packages that we are using and update it accordingly.
Yeah. So I actually like your point about, keeping, being up to date. So React is changing like anything these past few years. So then there are changes at architectural level nowadays with GSI and everything. So I just wanted to ask you guys about we start off with writing a scalable code, we modularize it, we do everything right. But how do we ensure that code doesn't turn into legacy? How do we ensure maintainability in our code? What is some practices that we should follow so that we are our code base doesn't turn legacy soon? Yeah. So Rakesh, you wanna take that?
Sure. That's that brings up a good point. How do we stay up to date? There are whenever you build applications in the React React ecosystem, React and React Native, you generally use a lot of community contributed. You rely on community contributed libraries and tools, and that the landscape is actually constantly evolving. In general, like not just React and React native ecosystem, but in general the JavaScript itself. I just have been fortunate to ride this entire wave of how the JavaScript unfolded, the modern JavaScript unfolded for the past 10 to 12 years, and I've seen the landscape changing pretty rapidly and evolving pretty rapidly. So it is important to kind of keep up to date with any evolutions or latest technologies and trends as they are happening. For example, for React, when we had class components, and then we kind of changed to functional components with hooks. So that's a pretty big change. But it kind of you need to be up to date on first understanding what was the problem with this class components, and then why did functional components come into play, and then what is the purpose of the hooks, right? So that is just one example. And that is the spectrum, or that is the end of React and JavaScript and ecosystem and the tools that we are using. But on the other hand, especially on the React native, it has a little another the flip side of the coin, right? You also are working very closely with the underlying operating systems, iOS or Android, and there are updates. Every year, every couple of months, you get updates from iOS and Android, and you also have to be watchful about any breaking changes that the underlying operating systems, the versions come with. And you have to be very watchful about any beta releases that come out of say from Apple or Google or either of the operating systems. Be cautious. The moment there is a beta version available, have it tested out with your app. Make sure that there are no breaking changes, or if there are any breaking changes, plan out and how you're going to address them, and then have those fixes out for your user base very early, because once there is an update, usually you have about 90 to 95% of uptake of the new operating system within a couple of weeks, and you don't want your application to be broken, and you don't want any surprises as well. So that is another thing I want to kind of share.
Rajesh, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, one example I can remember right now that like we had like OAuth right from Google, and they had their own guidelines, and we were like developing an app, like it's a website, and we were using it for a while. It was verified by Google, and then we did some changes and we had to publish it, and then we came to know that in between their OAuth guidelines has changed now, so that now the button looks entirely different. So again, the app kind of got rejected. So being really like up to date with the changes that the platforms are bringing in, so that really helps us to kind of avoid these kind of scenarios.
Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask was like, how soon is too soon to update? Like any changes that say Android or iOS comes up with, and like when should we actually update our code?
I can start. Like, so generally I wait for like I think a few weeks at least whenever a latest, let's say, React Native version has been released, so that I can go through the issues that everyone is using and not really instantly update all my like maybe priority based projects. Maybe I can start something new and see like if there is any breaking changes or something is like very new or not. But yeah, like I go through the threads and see like what are the most issues that people are facing and how quickly those are getting resolved, and any plans are there or not, like for upcoming few weeks, if they have to be taken care by the React Native team or not.
I asked this because I personally faced this. So we updated our React Native versions while the update was it just got released, and we updated it. And we had a lot of new developers, and we started facing build issues, compilation errors, and everything. And whole development was halted for a very long time. So yeah, I generally wanted to know opinions of you guys. How long do you generally take for you to update? Yeah. So Rakesh, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree enough actually. So I have some other take on some other point also I want to make. So usually React Native is not the long pole. I mean, it's one of the pillars, but it's usually not the long pole. In any average project, you would end up using at least 30, anywhere between 30 to 35 libraries or external components. Version React Native or React version is one aspect to it, but there is also about compatibility within all the libraries that you are actually using within your application. Say you update one library, but that might actually be not compatible with another library that you might be using. So even if there is a new version out there, you can't really use it. So that is the reason you will need to have, the libraries that actually you use in your application. You need to have some governance around it. You need to do enough research and make sure that it's something that is well supported by the community or the developer that you trust. You don't want the support of any library that you use stopping abruptly, and then you're stranded. You don't know where to go. So that is something that I want to mention. So and other thing is, I can kind of quote a simple example very recently with I think with Android 13. There is a change on how the location permissions behave, which actually caused some even the notifications permissions and location permissions. So we were using some library which didn't support, and we wanted to support Android 13, but just that the library that we are using didn't support the behavior, or it was not working the way we expected to. So that just one code example I can provide.
Yeah. Okay. I think we strayed away from our topic quite a lot, but yeah, coming back to our topic. Any final thoughts you guys have on building cross-channel experiences in React Native? Any tips, any tricks for our listeners?
Yeah, so I think like just being up to date with all the changes, having a proper, or rather I would say like quite a bit strict guideline among the team, like these are the things we must follow. Being very frequent in PRs and really checking how each of the developers are like maintaining or like following those guidelines. And yeah, I think rest is just kind of like exploring more and figuring out like how we can manage certain scenarios that may not be quite possible to judge beforehand.
Yeah, Rakesh, your thoughts?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think I can and agree to what Rajesh just mentioned. That you need to be cautious and watchful of your ecosystem, the ecosystem that you're working with, and keep in mind about having consistencies and being able to do the right thing always. Not just how you start, also consistency as you progress along. Some of the some of my learnings in the past also is performance, right? You also have to be performance usually comes as a afterthought, to be honest, but performance, how your application behaves. You want that 60 fps performance of your application, smooth experiences on your apps. You want to be able to give it to your user, and keeping that in mind as the screens are developed, and having the performance as the shift left. You don't want to look at your performance of the application as a later after, because it will be very difficult to address that later on. And on the same lines, right? On the same lines of performance. Like I was talking about these libraries and the dependencies, and how you want to be able to keep up to date on your code base. And one more point that I want to make is to have some kind of guardrails within your application. Like I mentioned this earlier on, So have documentation of your application is one aspect, but your code is actually the best friend for any developer that is working on. If there is any existing patterns that are already there within your code base, it is easier to follow that patterns. And instead of actually writing down in plain English elsewhere, code can actually act as a good example for any developer. So being able to cover these design patterns or in your code, okay, I want to do X, Y, Z, or I want to do X, is there do we already do something similar in the application? And having that patterns established, it'll be two ways. One is it'll be easier to read, and there is a consistency in your code on how things are, which module does what. And when you have these layers within your application, you exactly know what a layer does and what purpose it serves. If even for somebody coming new to your team, there won't be 10 different ways to do one single thing. There is a consistent way, and having a strong guardrails. I was talking about having a gate checks like static code analysis or even security standpoint, and making sure your code is free from any static scan issues. You can employ tools like a Sonar or Veracode. Just making sure that these have been set up from day one. It's not just I want to kind of do some code quality checks later on, like half the way. If you can have those gate checks early on, and the code, the single one, every single line of code from day one is done with highest quality. So that is another thing I want to mention.
Yeah. So interesting. Like, it's important, like, if we can attach a performance report with our PRs, so that it gives us a visibility, like anything new that we are introducing is actually like not subpar and actually meets the standards that we've set, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think this was it. Thank you guys. It was such a good talk, and thank you everyone for joining in for today, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.